All right, so I want to make this a short video today. That way you spend most of your math time today working on the farming Desmos that I also assigned. So all we're going to do is look at the two sprints that are at the beginning of lesson 6. What we're going to do is I'll kind of do some of the first sprint, probably not the whole thing just because I don't want to take that much time, but I'm going to kind of talk my way through it and talk about like some of the patterns and connections that are in it that are supposed to help you be able to do it or what you're supposed to learn from it. And then I'm going to ask you to do sprint B, which is attached to today's announcement, or you just do it on a separate piece of paper or whatever. And then you check your answers against mine. I already have sprint B done, and I'll just show you the answers. But you got to pause and actually do sprint B and then look at it. And no, you don't have to submit me a picture or anything of it. It's just for your practice. So these sprints are kind of meant to help you like realize a connection between these two things that I wrote in green and red here. Saying you have 30% less than a number, or a number is reduced by 30%, or there's a 30% sale, or a 30% markdown, all these different words that essentially mean reduced by 30%. That's the same as having 70% of that number left, right? If you take away 30% of something, you have 70% of it left. Those two things are the same. And so if you can switch back and forth between them, it will help you a lot. And then same thing with increases. If you have 25% more than a number, or if a number is increased by 25%, or there's a 25% tax on it, or 25% markup is like some of these words that people like to use, that's the same as having 125% of that number, because you have the original 125, the original 100% still, and then an additional 25%. And the fact that I chose 30 and 25% doesn't matter. It was just two random numbers I chose. This could have been any number here, and this could have been any number, and then you would have to adjust 70 and 125 accordingly. All right, so yeah, I'm just going to kind of talk my way through some of this, and then you pause the video and do the sprint B, and then you check your answers against mine. All right, so 100% of 10 is 10. You've got the whole number. 10% of 10, well, 10% is just 1/10. 1/10 of 10 is just 1. So then 10% more than 10, well, I know that I have my whole 10, and then 10% of that 10 is 1, so 11. 10% more than 10 is 11. And so 11 is blank percent more than 10. It's 10% more than 10. They're asking you the same question here, just in a different way, right? Like they give you the numbers and they want you to say the percents. All right, 11 is blank percent of 10. Well, 11 is a whole 10 plus that additional 10%, so it's 110%. See, so these two things are equivalent. 11 is 10% more than 10, but also 11 is 110% of 10, right? Like understanding those two statements and how to kind of work with both of them is really important. All right, so 11 is 10% more than 10. They're literally like asking me the same question over and over again, but just like in different ways to make sure that I understand the connections and understand what piece of information to fill in. Okay, so 110% of 10 is 11. 10% less than 10 is 9, because I know that 10% of 10 is 1, so if I want to reduce 10 by 10%, I just do 10 minus 1, I get 9. And so 9 is 10% less than 10. And so that means that 9 is 90% of 10, because I took away 10%, I have 90% left. And so 9 is 10% less than 10. 10% of 50 is, well, 1/10 of 50 is 5. 10% more than 50, well, I have to take my original 50 and add my 10%, which is 5. So the answer to this one's 55. 55 is blank percent of 50. Well, it's the original 50 plus an additional 10%, so 110%. 55 is blank percent more than 50. Well, it's 10% more because it just has that additional 5 on it. See, so here's these two statements again that basically mean the same thing. 55 is 110% of 50, and 55 is 10% more than 50. 55 is 10% more than 50. So literally like the same statement, questions 15 and 16, just the blanks are different pieces. All right, so 110% of 50 is 55. 10% less than 50 is, well, I know that 10% is 5, so I just subtract the 5 out of there and I get 45. 45 is 90% of 50, right? Because I know that I just took 10% off. Another way to think about it is, well, if you multiply 2 by 50, you get 100. So if you multiply 2 by 45, you get 90. You could think of it as like proportional relationship, stuff like that. All right, I think I'm going to stop there. I think you kind of get the idea, you get the pattern. So what I want you to do is pause the video here and do the other sprint. You can use a calculator if you want. This stuff's kind of meant to be done in your head, but that's hard for some students. So if you can do it in your head, do it in your head. If you can't, use a calculator. It doesn't matter to me too much. But pause the video, do as much a sprint B as you can or you want to, and then unpause the video and look at the answers. Okay, so you should be coming back from a pause. I'm going to show you the answers to Sprint B. I'm not going to say much about them, so you just look, just check and see what you did. And yeah, that's it for the video today. And just go and do the Farm Desmos.